In this video, you will learn to describe the Windows directory structure and how Windows handles the separation of 32-bit and 64-bit applications.
So let's look at a typical Windows directory structure. And most of you who have seen Windows before have probably seen that everything is stored on normally the C drive. I don't know why it was called the C drive, but that's just what we call it. So your main hard drive is typically called your C drive. And these are the kind of standard file structure you will see on a Windows 10 device. So you'll have some folders that are hidden, and when they're hidden, that just means that they're not accessible to the end user unless you actually go in and unhide them within the control panel. So those are folders that Microsoft says, you really don't need access to those, so we're going to hide them from you. And the main one that's hidden is called perf logs, and it holds performance logs, but typically it doesn't really hold anything. It's usually empty. But it is a folder that is one of them that's in the common directory structure off your C drive. And then you have kind of the meat of what's on the C drive, which are your program files and your program files x86. So on newer operating systems that can address more memory, we went to a 64-bit operating system. Some of you may remember that when Windows first came out, it was a Windows 3.1 was actually a 16-bit operating system, and then Windows 95 became a 32-bit operating system, and we had various versions of Windows operating systems, both 32-bit and 64-bit operating systems. And the real difference between a 32-bit and a 64-bit operating system is the amount of memory that can be addressed. As applications came out that needed more memory to run, operating systems increased their bit to 64 in order to address additional memory. 32-bit operating systems can only address 4 gigabytes of memory, and for modern applications, that's just really not enough. So with Windows 2000, we started seeing operating systems that were 64-bit, and then XP and Windows 7, and then finally with Windows 10 are 64-bit. So, and the reason I go into that level of detail is because of those two different program files. So program files will store your 64-bit applications. If you have a 32-bit operating system, you won't have a program files x86 directory because all of your applications will be installed in the program files directory. On a 64-bit edition of Windows or a 64-bit operating system, your 32-bit applications will be installed in program files x86. And 32-bit applications can run on a 64-bit operating system. They are just separated, so you'll see where they're installed differently. And then you will also have a folder called Program Data, and those are files that are accessed by computer programs regardless of what user is logged into the system. So they're really files that the applications that you run need in order to work effectively, independent of any user that might be logged on. And then you have your user directory. This is where your user profiles are stored, and each subfolder will be a different username. So as an example, all Windows operating systems will have a public folder. So this is where end users might be able to share files. So if you have multiple people logging into a system, they can put something in public and everyone would have access to that file. And then you will have, in addition to public, under the users folder, you will have each username of people who have logged onto that system, or I should say who are authorized to log onto that system. So user files are typically stored in there. You may have lots of folders under the username directory. So you would have a My Documents folder, you'd have a Pictures folder, a Music folder. Anyone who's seen a modern Windows operating system will have noticed that. And then you will also have an App Data folder. This would be like your Program Data folder, but for application data that is specific to an end user. So if you have a custom template within, say, Microsoft Word, it would be stored under your username and then the app data folder in order to separate it from other users who may log onto the system. And then in addition to that, you'll have your Windows system directory. And this is where Windows is actually installed here. And you'll have mainly 3 folders under that: your System 32, and your SysWow 64. These are file or folders that really are the core features of Windows and the Windows API. So anytime a program asks Windows to load what we call a dynamic link library file, and it doesn't specify a path, these are the folders that are searched. So this is where Windows stores all the kind of system files that are needed to run Windows and provide the graphical user interface to the end user. Your system folder stores your 16-bit DLLs, and really will be empty on 64-bit editions of Windows, but the system folder is still there on 64-bit operating systems. Your System 32 will store either 32-bit or 64-bit DLL files, and what that really will depend on whether you're on a 64-bit or 32-bit system. And then your SysWow 64 will only appear on 64-bit versions of Windows and store your 32-bit DLLs. And so that's really what you'll see when you open up a common C drive on a Windows system, either an end-user system or a server system. These are the folder structure that you'll commonly see on a modern Windows operating system.